College for inviting me here today. And I'm very happy to be here because of two very particular reasons which I think connect me in a unique way to this college. You see, Khalsa College is in Devnagar and I live in Devnagar, just 2 streets away, so it's like home for me. And secondly, as a child, when I used to come here on the Khalsa bus stop, I used to wonder how come in a cramped up place like Karol they have a college here. And I used to wonder what it looks from the inside. So thank you for calling me and I'll be seeing it here. One of my childhood curiosities finally settled. Anyway, so the paper I'm going to talk about today is on the personal and the political aspects of identity in the poetry and lyrics of Sahir Ludhianvi, with special reference to his lyrics, his profound lyrics in Gurudutt's classic 1957 film Pyasa. Believe me, it's not boring as it sounds, it's actually a very fun paper. So, let me begin by talking about how we should approach Sahir Sahab and who is Sahir Ludhianvi. Because see, a lot of times when I talk about Sahir Sahab and recite his poetry to my friends and family, to my dismay, they do not even recognize Sahir Sahab's name. It is sad, but I do not get disheartened because I firmly know that they know Sahir. It is just that they don't know it is Sahir. So when they give me that dumbfounded face, I have learned one line after which I know they'll say, "Acha, wo Sahir ne likha hai." I say, "तुमने वो गाना सुना है? कभी-कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है." And they say, "हाँ," and I say, "वो Sahir hai." And I recall this incident today because it tells something very fundamental about Sahir Sahab in the sense that he is in the ranks of those great people whose work precedes their reputation. And I can name hundreds of his magnificent songs. Common people across the world listen every day while driving, working, sweeping and praying. My own grandmother listens to them every day from Saregama Karma, not knowing like many others. I mentioned that they were written by the great Urdu poet Sahir. But this is not Sahir Sahab's shortcoming, but I would argue it's actually one of his greatnesses. Even after 43 years of his death, he has unknowingly become a part of our culture, our vocabulary, our festivals and our everyday life, even without us knowing that he's there. He's part of our lives. Zindagi ke har pehlu par, janm se lekar marne tak, on every single part of our life there is a song of Sahir. You can name it. I mean, he's one of those poets who's actually written a beautiful nazm on divorce. I mean, you remember that song from Hamraz, "Chalo ek baar phir se ajnabi ban jaye hum dono." It's a beautiful nazm on breaking up. You should learn that. And even if it's about shortcomings, it is not Sahir Sahab's shortcoming, but it is our shortcoming that we do not recognize his name. Because this is Sahir who was born in the 1922 pre-partition Punjab in Ludhiana, from where he gets his takhallus or pen name, and is one of the most important, the greatest and the controversial lyricists of Hindustani cinema. But it must be noted that foremost and at last, Sahir Sahab remains a first-rate Urdu poet whose filmy and non-filmy poetry, by any perspective of literary criticism, stand true to its salt and are pure literature in the true academic sense of that word. वो अदब है, वो साहित्य है. So one thing needs to be clarified, that his filmy lyrics are literature at par with his poetry, and in fact any poetry for that matter. I mean, if you take his lyrics from any song and just speak or recite them without music, without Rafi Saab's voice or Lata Mangeshkar's voice, or just jot it down on paper and read, you see beautiful, meaningful poetry written in perfect rhyme and meter. See the songs of today; they don't make sense even with music. Sahir Saab's poetry makes sense even without the music. Take for instance this song from the film Kabhi Kabhi, which I personally very like, and I won't sing because you don't want to hear it in my voice, but I will recite. कल और आएंगे नगमों की खिलती कलियां चुनने वाले, मुझसे बेहतर कहने वाले, तुमसे बेहतर सुनने वाले. कल कोई मुझको याद करे, क्यों कोई मुझको याद करे, मसरूफ जमाना मेरे लिए क्यों वक्त अपना बर्बाद करे, मैं पल दो पल का शायर हूं. It is, who can deny this is not literature? Besides, I can talk about countless other qualities which countless critics have pointed out, which makes his poetry and lyrics speak to us even now, that charisma of Sahir. But over a year of academically engaging with his work and being an admirer for much longer, I will talk about something new today. I will talk about the fascinating aspect of Sahir Sahab's poetry, a man who merged the sorrows of the heart and the turmoils of the outside world into a single verse. The mutual and coherent expressions of the personal and the political dimensions of identity in his poetics, which he hinted at this couplet. I quote, "मैंने हर चंद गमे इश्क को होना चाहा, गमे उल्फत, गमे जिंदगी में समोना चाहा." And I will translate because I know it's very heavy Urdu. I tried to forget the sorrows of love every instant by bringing together the pains of the heart in the pains of the world. to see the personal and the political and vice versa in each other, to look beyond my own pain at the wider suffering of humanity. I mean, it sounds something like Faiz Saab, और भी दुख है ज़माने में मोहब्बत के सिवा, रातें और भी हैं वस्ल की राह के सिवा, कि हमारे अलावा भी बहुत दुख है. To better understand this aspect in entirety, we need to understand the two schools of thought that existed and still continue to do in not only Urdu literature, but in all the literatures of the world, and towards which Sahir Saab was reacting to craft his own unique poetic voice. The schools I'm talking about is the Romantic school and the Progressive school of thought. The point of contention between them is regarding the true purpose of literature. The Romantic school, influenced by the classical tradition, argue that personal expression, aesthetics of the natural world, idealism in love, and individual emotion should be the primary themes of expression and not socio-political criticism. They advocate for personal poetry as personalized as Wordsworth expression, "My heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky." The progressives, on the other hand, are inspired by revolution and realistic depiction of the ugliness and vices of an unequal world. They want social change and want to challenge the status quo. Many of them are leftists and some are even committed Marxists. Karfi Saab is a good example of that. In India, they formed the Progressive Writers Association, or PWA, which had in its ranks among my favorite writers like Amrita Pritam, Shailendra Kishan Chandra, Bedi, Sahir, Sajjad Zahir, and Premchand, amongst others. Their philosophy is best summed up in the inaugural address of Premchand, delivered at the PWA conference held at Lucknow in 1936, where he proclaimed, and I quote, "Literature can best be defined as a criticism of life. The literature of our immediate past had nothing to do with actuality. Our writers were living in a world of dreams." So it's basically roasting the romantics. But when you seriously think about these two apparently polar opposite views, you begin to understand the seriousness and relevance of this contention. It's not about two bickering camps of critics, but the essential human condition. I mean, as a poet myself, I've often been confronted with this dilemma. I question myself, should my life, my heartbeats, my happiness, in short, my life, my rules, be the center of my poetic universe, or should, as Brecht said, be a hammer with which I should not only reflect, but shape reality? By extension, this debate is about the dilemma of identity and how the personal and the political aspects overlap, contest, and influence each other over predominance over our psyche and consciousness. I mean, we all, at some point in our lives, confront these questions of identity that arise from seeing our own solitary viewpoint, the personal, in the larger scheme of things outside our control, the political. The question thus becomes whether I come first or the society. Are my sorrows smaller or insignificant in comparison to the larger suffering of humanity? And it is in this context that fundamental queries that Sahir Saab's poetry becomes immensely relevant and significant for us. For he not only offers conciliation to our troubled minds, but also offers definite philosophical and poetic answers to them. Through both his filmy and non-filmy poetry, Sahir Saab has taught us that romance and revolution, or the personal and the political, are not contradictory terms or ideologies. Instead, they are interdependent and coexist hand in hand with every individual at every point of time. And Sahir Saab rejected this dichotomy, achieved a balance between the two, and saw them as a continuum of the events of life. I mean, let me quote, in a lesser known poem of his, which is called Rajat Pasand, which means conservative, he speaks about his neutrality and abhorrence for extremes, and like all great poets and artists, rejects being categorized into ideologies. He wrote, "रजत पसंद हूँ कि तरक्की पसंद हूँ मैं, इस बहस को फजूल व बस जानता हूँ मैं, आईनाए हवादिस हस्ती है मेरे शेर, जो देखता रहा हूँ कहता रहा हूँ मैं." Which I'll translate, am I a conservative by nature or a progressive mind? This controversy is a trifle. I regard it as sort of bind. My verses are a mirror to reflect the vagaries of nature. I have penned what I have seen without an axe to grind. And rest of his works also stand as testimony to this union between romance and revolution, or by extension, the personal and the political aspects of identity. This is also reflected in Sahir Saab's unique quality to move from one's own afflictions to the sorrows of the low-lying and the downtrodden within a single poem, and not just within a single poem, but within a single shade, a single couplet. For instance, in his long, antique, beautiful poem, which I think everyone should read, Parchaiyan, there is a stanza where he wrote, and I quote, "और मैं सीने में गम लेकर दिन रात मशक्कत करता हूँ, जीने के खातिर मरता हूँ, अपने फन को रुसवा करके अगयार का दामन भरता हूँ, मजबूर हूँ मैं, मजबूर हो तुम, मजबूर ये दुनिया सारी है, तन का दुख मन पर भारी है." Let me explain that, unpack the details. He's saying, और मैं सीने में गम लेकर दिन रात मशक्कत करता हूँ. He's talking about the pain of the worker that cannot even afford to vent out his pain because he has to work and fill the stomach of his kids. He does not even have the luxury of Devdas to waste himself in love, but has to labor hard to survive with all the hopelessness and bitterness in his heart. It is a political statement on the face of it, but at the same time it can be read as an expression of personal anguish, of how we all, people are bottling up our anger and loneliness and continue to live our lives. He also writes, continues, अपने फन को रुसवा करके अग्यार का दामन भरता हूँ. Now a whole Marxist analysis I bet would be written on this very single line, where he talks about how he's wasting his fun, which means talent in Farsi, to fill the pockets of the rich. अग्यार is गैर का दामन भरना. The whole Marxist idea of the profit deriving from the surplus produced by the hard labor of the poor is evident here. But it is also a personal expression of the poet that he has to write not what he wants, but what the publisher asked him to write to become a bestseller. It's the same dilemma we all face when we try to publish our poetry. And then he writes, and then he says, "Majboor hu main, majboor ho tum." It is a personal thing about you and me. But majboor ye duniya sari hai. It is also about the world. The world is troubled like us and hard pressed with pains. And then he says this beautiful line, "Tan ka dukh man par bhari hai." He's saying that the fight for bare survival, to fill my stomach to get the food, the pangs of hunger, the tan ka dukh is overpowering the sorrows of my heart. Man ke dukh par bhari hai. In a sense, he's saying you cannot afford to pay attention to the problems of your heart on an empty stomach. And it is not only literary poetry I'm talking about. It is fascinating how overlapping of the personal and the political happens in Sahir Saab's poetry, and he brings this sensibility and this unique quality to his filmy lyrics as well. And which, as I argue in this paper, are best represented in the lyrics he wrote for Gurudutt's magnum opus Pyasa in 1957. I chose Pyasa because by looking at this film, you understand the crux of Sahir Saab's philosophy and what drives him as a poet. I mean, उन्होंने बहुत बाकी फिल्मों में अच्छे गाने लिखे हैं, but Pyasa comes the most closer to his life and his temperament. The movies are looking glass into his complex mind and bitter heart. Through the plot of this film and the lyrics, we see that in Sahir Saab's poetry, be it filmy or non-filmy, the personal and the political come together in the form of anger and bitterness. It is a bitterness that comes from an individual who finds no social security in the outside world, and when he introspects, he finds the same desolation, the same loneliness, the same rejection in his heart. He best sums this up in the poignant and existential song from Pyasa, "Ye duniya agar mil bhi jaye to kya hai." In the second stanza of this song, Sahir Saab begins on the personal note of the lamenting and the sorrow of the individual who sees the hollowness of human relations, his deep distrust in humanity, and the bitter acceptance of the pointlessness of love. He says, "ये दुनिया जहां आदमी कुछ नहीं है, वफा कुछ नहीं, दोस्ती कुछ नहीं है, यहाँ प्यार की कदर ही कुछ नहीं है, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है." And then, in the second last stanza of his song, he turns to the political disillusionment and bitterness with the moral and political order of the world with a cathartic explanation. "जला दो इसे, फूंक डालो, ये दुनिया तुम्हारी है, तुम ही संभालो, ये दुनिया मेरे सामने से हटा लो, ये दुनिया अगर मिल भी जाए तो क्या है." Therefore, Sahir aesthetically weaved the tensions of the individual and the political anxieties into the fabric of a single verse. This added a unique dimension of the duality of meaning, transforming his poetry from mere tales of unsuccessful love to exquisite verses where love becomes a social phenomenon, a form of revolution, and the social political debates becomes the canvas of personal enquiry. Thank you so much.